I'm Molly Young from the Miami University Alumni Association, and today, as part of the Alumni Association's webinar series, we present Collaborative Changemaking for Professionals and Organizations. Joining us for today's webinar is Miami alum Greg Van Kirk, class of 91. Welcome to you, Greg. Thank you for being here and joining us to chat a little bit about what these collaborative change-making conversations look like and how we can make them work for us. So just a reminder real quick for our live viewers at home, you can submit questions during the live webinar by hitting the Ask a Question button under your video. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to our friend Greg to get us started. Welcome.
Hey, how are y'all doing today? This is Greg Van Kirk. One quick thing, just to get started, we've been with Molly and JJ have been noticing that this internet seems to sometimes just work in one direction. So I think you all can hear me fine and you'll be able to see the slides fine. But if you see me pause at all, it's simply because things are coming in a little bit fuzzy or a little bit slow for me. So that might be where there's a little bit of a disconnect. As you can tell, I'm in a hotel room. So maybe I don't have the best connection right now. But so first of all, thanks for coming, and huge thanks to the Miami Alumni Association for hosting this. It's always wonderful to be working with, collaborating with, I guess sticking with the theme with folks in Miami, and it's just a real blessing to be able to do so. And as well, thank you all for coming today. I know it's noon, it's lunchtime, maybe it's early in the morning, or maybe you're in Europe and it's later in the afternoon or in the evening. But I know you've got limited time and a lot of things going on in your day. So just appreciate you taking the time, and I really hope that you find this valuable. First of all, as you can see here, starting off, I'm just going to start off with a little bit of framing about what this is all about, and then I'm actually going to try to make this as dynamic as possible as we can do on a one-way webinar, so that you all can take some tools away, maybe some new thoughts, new ideas, ways of working together away from this, so that it's not just me talking. Typically, I like to think that if I'm talking more than 15% of the time, then I'm probably failing. I'll be doing that a little bit more here today. But we will have a time for you to be actually using some of the collaborative change-making tools that I've designed and experience it. I'm a big fan of showing and not telling as much as possible. So you'll be able to see that. So I'll give a framing up front. We'll work through some of the tools and resources that I've designed. And then talk about some of the benefits of those, ideally that you'll see from using them and experiencing them. And then at the end, talk about some ways, some opportunities to collaborate or to potentially work together, and some things that I've designed that can hopefully be supportive of your work in a whole host of different ways. So I'm gonna go here. So this is Collaborative Changemaking Labs. So this is an organization that actually started earlier this year, which is really sort of for lack of a better way to put it, a capstone of the last 25 years of my career. You can find it at collaborativechangemaking.com. And this really came out of late last year. I published a book called "It's What You Set in Motion: A Toolbox for Collaborative Changemaking." So just keying on those terms, it's what you set in motion actually is what I heard. I was many years ago. I was at a workshop in India, and with a bunch of social entrepreneurs, and we were asked to put quotes on there or what this work was all about. And it always stuck in my head that somebody wrote down, "It's what you set in motion," right? And it's not what you do, it's what you set in motion. So I think for anything that you're doing in work, be it in the private sector, social sector, education, what have you, it's our job to set things in motion to help people become empowered, and then let the magic happen. Right. And then you see underneath that is a toolbox for collaborative change making. I'll talk about collaborative change making in further depth in a moment. But this really is just a toolbox. If you were to have this book, purchase the book, or if you already have it, you'll see it's this big 400-page book that has 22 principles and 76 tools and 13 toolkits and hyperlinks to videos and what have you. So it's just this big master toolbox that I published. Works great as a flotation device as well if you need. It's very, very thick. And what it has is it's a toolbox for collaborative change making, and you can see there the hashtags for all of these different things that I just wanted to highlight. And so Collaborative Changemaking Labs, if you look at, I published this book, which is all these tools and resources that I've designed and been using for the last 25 years. And then the organization is about how do we get this out there, understanding that a book is one channel for helping to equip and empower people with these tools and resources. But there are a lot of other ones. And I've had the good fortune of working with a lot of different folks within this who've been supportive of this, who I'm collaborating with this. So I thought, why don't we start an organization that really reflects that and helps get these tools out there in different ways, just like we're doing today. So if I look at what is it with Collaborative Changemaking Labs, with Collaborative Changemaking writ large, and thinking about professionals and organizations, the theme of this webinar, I just wanted to highlight what are the challenges or the problems that I hope, or that we hope to help address and to overcome. And so what I have here is just broken it down by professionals, individuals, and then organizations, right? These are some summary of some of the challenges that you'll see ideally using these collaborative change-making tools will help you to overcome. So professionals, big picture, 35,000 feet, look at anybody doing any kind of work these days in particular. We know these are things that I don't need to tell you. We have this constantly changing world. The speed of change is accelerating. I mean, heck, just look at everything that's going on with AI, right? And VUCA, which is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, is pervasive. Right? I mean, we already lived in this very VUCA world before, before social media and before COVID and what have you, and everything that's going on in the world today. And so, if you look from a professional perspective, it isn't sort of the static, just dealing with complication as we did in the past, but it's really ongoing more than anything, uncertainty and complexity. So how do you get sort of the skill sets and the mindsets to help you thrive, to help you overcome those challenges, these increasing challenges? So that's one thing that we hope to address. And then organizations, certainly organizations are also dealing with everything on the professional level. But looking at so many organizations, I don't know if this is reflective of yours in certain ways, but certainly it's a generalization. But organization can be siloed, right? That's a problem because we sort of have these verticals that we create that grow, but we don't have sort of horizontal communication. That's a challenge, right? Another thing is we need a common language, right? And by common language, thinking that we all come from different backgrounds, from different maybe a more technical background, a more customer experience background, an education background, right? We speak different languages. We say different things, right? Somebody says training, somebody says capacity building, right? Somebody says upskilling, education, right? That's just a basic example, but we need a common language if we're going to work together. So that's a challenge. We don't typically oftentimes have a common language. We need to build cross-functional teams, right? We know that teams and teams of teams are much more agile and resilient. Now we have these hybrid and virtual environments. That's a challenge because we're not just meeting each other at the water cooler and building relationships. We don't have these liminal spaces. We're like, hey, Molly, how are you doing? What's going on today? We're building the relationships or exchanging information informally. We need to empower, right? If you think of as an educator, as a leader, whoever it is, we don't want to be telling people what to do or delegating all the time. We want to help people become empowered to diagnose and solve problems for themselves and for the organization or for clients. We need to increase resilience. We certainly saw that with the supply chains and such during COVID. We need to tap into the collective wisdom. I don't know that we necessarily need to, but boy, it's incredibly helpful. Think about organizations and all the wisdom that's within an organization. How do we tap into all of that and everybody's perspectives rather than having sort of expertise or perspectives sit in one place or in a few people's hands? Certainly we want to increase well-being just on an overall human level, but certainly on an organizational level. It's just smart to focus on well-being. And we need to upskill economically. Know that with budgets or rising interest rates previously or what have you, that one of the things that became more challenging was learning and development and upskilling folks. So how do we do it in an economical way? So that's what I see as some of the highlighted challenges or problems that professionals, whatever kind of professionals and organizations are having, sort of sector agnostic in many regards. And so then what's a solution, right? So what I have as a solution is what I call collaborative change making. And so what is that? I'll highlight here, but just in my own words, right? For so much of my career, I've been, an entrepreneur or a social entrepreneur. And people would say it's, a social innovator, or we all have these different terminologies, and I think sometimes we get stuck on terminologies. I like to think just overall what we're all trying to do is change making. It doesn't mean don't keep what works sacred, but it's basically how do we help to create positive change. So if I go back to the slide, so using an umbrella term so we don't get hung up on terminologies. What you have here is actually, I thought this was just wonderful. So I led a series of workshops with some folks from Ethiopia and professionals from Ethiopia, from folks from Texas. You can see that here, and asked them from their perspective, what is collaborative change making? And I just loved some of their responses. I'll just pick one, the bottom one here, but you can see these yourselves. It's collaborative change making embodies people coming together across different backgrounds, expertise, and perspectives to address and solve societal or organizational challenges actively, right? Super inclusive, fits for what we're trying to do. So now let me get into the collaborative change making tools. And what I'd ask too is take out a pen and paper, or you can on your notepad or something, because I'm going to ask you to be putting you to work here today. So hope you find it helpful and can take something away from that. So the tools themselves, if we're to sort of zoom back out. So what you'll see within these different tools, which are really just conversation frameworks, right? Think of them as conversation frameworks. I use the metaphor of a tool because I like to think of a toolbox, and I can go and I can reach in and grab something when I need it, right? But these tools themselves, I have with each one, it says, what hats do you wear? 12 application ideas. And so you'll see that within each one of these, as I have them today, with the thought that these are universal, and I want to provide guidance for each one of these hats, but also just from a contextual perspective, just so a little bit of background. I've been, over the last 25 years in particular, I've had this constant source of frustration that when we think about working together to build teams or diagnose some problems or prioritize opportunities or design solutions or what have you, there's a lot of what, there's a lot of theory, there's a lot of why, but there aren't a lot of frameworks, there aren't a lot of tools to be able to do that, right? To be able to get together and have a conversation with people and in a short period of time and get everybody's ideas together and then try to come up with some now what's, what are our next steps? And so what I have here with these 12 different hats, we all wear different hats. You might be wearing all of these or 5 of these or 2 of these or what have you. But what I found is if you look at each, so, business, I've been developing these tools as I've been starting businesses and helping people start businesses, in all kinds of different environments for the years. So I've got some guidance on that because I built these to help solve problems for myself as I was doing that. I mentor, and I was looking for, what are some different tools that can help me with mentoring? So it comes from that. So that's included here. Point being, this isn't theoretical. This all comes from life experience from real applied perspective of doing this. There's guidance for educators. This comes from, I teach everything from at the university level, I adjunct, and I, design and lead workshops for Girl Scouts, right? Consultants, these are certainly fantastic for consulting. I've been consulting for the past, almost 25 years now all around the world. And these tools are incredibly helpful to be able to engage with clients and help them achieve what they want to achieve. Facilitating, you can see all of these different examples, right? So point being is that I've highlighted how do you apply them in these different circumstances, but they come from being used and designed for all of these different circumstances. Okay, so what I want you to do is think about what hat are you wearing or what hats do you wear, right? And maybe pick one right now. One quick note before going on the exercises is what I have. I'm going to highlight some of the tools here. These aren't the ones in blue are from a different reference. But this is the full inventory, right? So as I'd said in the beginning, this is all what's in the book, and this is what I pick from and curate from to do to accomplish different things. Again, there are 76 tools in 13 toolkits. So you can see if you look up on the top left, there's building our change making team, So there's a tool for, forming your team, for your why, for your core values. We're going to do that now. Building out a collaborative culture, which comes from Google Aristotle research. Our superpowers, right? So a toolkit there to help you focus on that. There's ones for recalibrating. This is one that's been really, really helpful, in particular over the past year and a half or so, as I've been working with organizations that are going really, really, really fast, but they want to make sure that they're maintaining who they are and maintaining their culture. So a lot of recalibrating, making sure that you're checking in with yourselves. You'll see, there's at the bottom, finding and prioritizing actionable problems. In the middle, Toolkit 5, human-centered mapping, systems mapping. So some of these may be very familiar to you. As I've been looking to create these conversation tools over the year, I borrowed from systems thinking and human-centered design and business model canvas, and from different articles, and from stripping out a tool from a methodology to create something that's much simpler. You go into then Toolkit 7 is blueprints. So that's your blueprint for your innovation or your solution. All the way down, if you look at in Toolkit 9, I have people for people strategies. So how to build a peer support strategy design, community of practice strategy design, mutual aid strategy design. So they span everything across the for-profit, nonprofit, education sector. And so ideally you can pull these out and use them. All right. So now getting into one final point is one of the things you're thinking about how to use these different, conversation frameworks, these different tools. I sort of met, one of the things I'm trying to do is understanding, that people are really, really busy, that you have things going on. You already have activities you're doing. This isn't about extra. It's not about something that's layering something on top of what you're already doing. You probably already, you've got 28 hours of stuff you got to do during the day, and you've only got 24 hours, right? So I know that in that case, trying to add on a new program or something, things don't get done. So the way that I see this metaphorically is, if you look at all these activities over here, team meetings, workshops, employee resource groups, curriculum development, all of the, I just listed out 31 of these that came to me fairly quickly. You're already doing these things. You're already engaged in these activities with other people, with groups, with teams, with your organizations, with students, what have you. To me, that's like drinking milk, right? So you're already drinking the milk. What these tools do ideally is they add vitamin D to your milk, right? They help you do what you're already doing much better and in a quote unquote healthier way, right? That's more inclusive, that's more equitable, that's more empathetic, that's more diverse, that's more creative, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so think about yourself in these situations. You're already drinking this milk, and then we've got these tools. All right. So first one, we're gonna do an abbreviated. I'm just keeping my track of time here for us. We're gonna do just a really abbreviated exercise with this tool. This is what I call our core values tool. Every tool is set up in the exact same format that you have here, right? The point is to make it really, really simple. So this one I have a how might we align our individual and team core values. So with each one of the tools, what you'll see is there's an about this, which I describe it, and I put in a quote from somebody from this is Nina Simone. I love that quote. Then there's how our core value tool works. And the tool itself is the third image over to the right. Super important is these are, you have this in a book. I also have this in a digital format. If you get as I'll touch on later, the tools letter. But I built all of these in Google Sheets. And I built them in Google Sheets for a number of reasons. Obviously, most importantly, so that you could work on them in teams that are spread out throughout the world or different places, virtually, hybrid, what have you, right? So you can all work on it together, even though you're not in the same place. Number one. And number two is I've designed, and you may see something and you're like, I like that, but I'd like to change it a little bit here. Great. Go into the Google Sheet, make an editable copy, and go and edit it and change it yourself, right? I mean, I've built all of these from changing them from other things. Please go do the same. So I invite you to do that. That's one of the reasons why I built them in Google Sheets. Okay. And then you have what hats do you wear? So with this, what I would ask you to do is we'll pause for a moment, and I've got some quick instructions for you. So what I'd like you to do is, if you can, it's a little bit tough for you to see this. It's a little bit small, so forgive me, right? But maybe if I'll give you 30 seconds And if you could write down, what are your top three core values for you as a person? Right? On this, which you can't see, right, is I have, acceptance and equity and empathy and courage and all of that. But let me go back. So this has a list of core values. This exercise is a little bit more, you're going to access all of these. But for our purposes, I just want you to see the tool and ask you, what are three core values? So I'm just going to pause and give you 30 seconds. Write those down, note those down. Okay, 5 more seconds. Okay, so hopefully you've got your 3. If you only have 2, that's fine. If you have 5, that's great, right? So now what I want you to do is, from those 3 core values, can you circle the top one? What's the most important one for you? I'll give you like 5 seconds to think about it. Okay, so you've got that. So with this tool, and I'm going to go to my question there to you, although I know I can't hear you. All right. This tool I find extremely helpful. The way that you work with this is you do 3 rounds, and you do what are your top 10 or your top 15 in a short period of time, your top 5, your top 1, and then we have each of our core values, right? And then at the top of the tool, and then what we do is we have a conversation about our core values, and at the top of the tool, as a team, as a group, what have you, we note down our core values. I find this may seem very, very simple. All these things are going to seem simple. That's kind of the point, right? But whenever I'm starting a group, be it with students or working building a new team, or I'm working in a new team or what have you, it's so incredibly helpful to start with this exercise. We talk about what are our core values, what matters to us. Then we have a conversation about those. Then we learn about each other. And then we decide, okay, between everything that we have, what are our top 3, 5, or 6, or whatever that are going to be the core values for our team, right? And I know oftentimes we put our core values and it goes up on a website or it goes on a poster somewhere and then we ignore it. But when we think about going back to VUCA, going back to working in volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, right? As we know, I'm sure you're doing your work and in your life, right? There aren't binary decisions that we make. There aren't right answers and wrong answers. We're working in gray, right? And so if we're working in gray, and we have to make decisions, how do we make decisions? Especially when we might disagree with each other. We might think, oh, well, I think that's the best thing, or you think that's the best thing. Having your core values there as sort of a third party that you can point to and say, which decision is most in keeping with our core values that we've agreed upon, helps to actually make those decisions in the gray, helps us to avoid conflict, right? And helps us to come to consensus much more quickly. Right. And obviously it helps us sort of keep those guardrails on that helps us get to our overall why. Okay. So I find this exercise super, super helpful. Something that you have here. By the way, I'm going to send everybody a packet with what we have here today. But think about prioritizing your core values. I decided to design this because so oftentimes with teams, when I was helping to start like venture teams or teams in communities or what have you, people would have disagreements and, somebody isn't doing this or that, or we're sitting on the opposite side of the table. How do we align ourselves from the very beginning and have something that we can always go back to that doesn't change? Okay. So think about your core values. What's yours, right? And then you think about your team doing this with a team that you might work with or with your students or what have you, and using that as a starting point to be able to go and make decisions, change-making decisions. All right. So next one. So what I want you to do is think of a problem. This is a problem tree analysis. Okay. And so this is, again, super simple. The question on the left, how might we work to understand both the root causes and negative effects of problems? This is the tool itself. Right? This is not something that I designed. This is something that I found several years ago. I wish I had this 25 years ago. Super, super simple, right? But I love that Albert Einstein quote. I think it's like, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes on figuring out the problem and 5 minutes on trying to solve it, right? Because once you understand the problem, it helps you a heck of a lot harder. It helps you a heck of a lot more to be able to solve it. And I often find, I don't know if in your case, but I find that the toughest thing is to actually define what the heck the problem is, and to have a lot of specificity around what the problem is, right? Because typically when we start with defining problems, we're actually defining issues, or we're defining symptoms, right? So with this tool, what you do is however you define the problem right now, don't overthink it. You put it in the trunk, right? You define it there. And then you work together with your team and you brainstorm about what are all the root causes of the problems, right? What are all the negative effects of the problems? And you brainstorm and you put it all down, right? So what I'd ask you to do is, if you can think, and I know I'm going fast here, but the idea is really just to sort of onboard these a bit and help you experience them a little bit. But think about what's a problem right now that you can define in your work or life or what have you. Put that in the trunk. And then can you think of, we'll focus on the root causes. What are 2, 3, 4 root causes of that problem? Right? Because with any problem, there are typically a lot of root causes, right? For example, homelessness, you might define that as a problem. That's not a problem, right? That's a symptom of a whole host of different root causes. Our customers, our customers are leaving us. Okay, put that as the problem. Okay, what are all the root causes of that? Right. So I'm going to pause because this is going to come in handy in our next tool, and write down a problem, note down a problem, and think of 3 to 4 root causes. I'll give you about a minute. When you do this with a team or with a group, this works great on a poster, works great on a whiteboard, and just giving everybody a chance to talk. But when somebody throws something on there, somebody else then does, and make sure that you don't speak until everybody else has spoken. Really building these inclusive conversations and brainstorming conversations this works for conferences, it works for consulting, it works for teaching. Obviously, students using this. What's a root cause of, I don't know, something in history of World War II, right? Can we go in and do that? Help us to have these conversations and critical thinking frameworks. Okay, so you've got your root causes. Ideally, you've have your problem. You wrote down some root causes, I hope. One note on just technically when using this tool, what I find extremely helpful is once you have a bunch of causes, you figure out which ones are actionable and which ones maybe aren't actionable at the moment, right? Like we need $10 million. That's one of the root causes. Or we don't have $10 million. Okay, maybe that's not actionable right now. We're not going to focus on that. We find our actionable ones, potentially. We get one that we think might be something we can act upon to address, to solve the problem itself. And then we erase it. We put it back up in the problem and we do root causes again. So it gets to a 5 whys in many regards. Okay, so that's your problem tree. You have that now. Again, these are also just heuristics, right? You don't have to actually use the tool. Once you learn the tool and you learn as a framework for a conversation, then you can have a conversation with a colleague and you don't actually need the tool itself. Okay, next one. This is a failure mode tool. Okay, problem prioritization analysis. And I'm going to make sure we get through all this, so no worries. And so this is how might we prioritize problems based on frequency and severity, right? So much of this in terms of the problem solving tools is understanding that it's really hard to decide what to do, right? And so how do we help as a team prioritize what we're going to do in particular? There we go. All right. So this is about analyzing problems through the lens of frequency and severity. And maybe folks have used a failure mode tool before, right? And so with this, what you want to do is, let's say you had those 3 problems that you just identified, right? You can see how these can work interdependently and dependently, right? How you can tie them together. So you write down this, what's my overall goal? You put that up top. What am I trying to achieve? What are we trying to achieve, right? What are the problems? What's getting in the way of us achieving it there? You have that in the left-hand column, as you can see it. So you would maybe take sort of what you had as root causes and put those down there, right? And then you have a prioritization formula. So frequency, how often does this problem happen, right? So you see there, if you were to put a problem in the top left-hand box, you have your frequency, and 1 to 5, 1, it hardly ever happens. 5, this thing happens all the time, right? And then you have severity. When this does happen, how severe are the negative consequences? 1, not a big deal. 5, everything falls apart, okay? And what you do with this framework, with this tool, is you take whatever number you've circled, and then you multiply it together, and you get the prioritization number, okay? Needless to say, the highest number that you get out of all of the problems that you've analyzed through this is the thing you should focus on first. Okay? What this helps you do is, again, get unstuck. Obviously, get everybody's perspectives. Really important when I have numbers. I might say a 3 for something for a frequency. JJ might say a 5. Okay, we've got to have a conversation about why do we think different things? Why are we assigning different numbers, right? So it helps us really get to the why behind things. And importantly, it helps us to avoid what I would call shark attacks and nuisances, right? A shark attack is high severity. It sucks to get eaten by a shark, right? Low frequency doesn't happen very often. Probably don't want to spend too much energy on that, right? A nuisance is very high frequency, very low severity, right? Just more sort of a bother. Okay, maybe I'm not going to focus there. I'm going to focus things that are a little bit more in the middle. Okay, so if you go down and I don't think we'll have sort of time for you to do it, but you can see this, right? You put your problems, you do your frequency, and then you ideate on some solutions together. Okay, so now we're moving over to ideating on some solutions. Again, these don't have to tie together, but this is in terms of, when I design workshops or work together, a curriculum, putting different tools of these together in different ways. So here, which many of you may have seen, okay, now we have some solution ideas, or maybe there's already some existing solutions, and I'm going to do an impact and effort analysis. So again, using 2 criteria, you can see through this, what we're doing is looking at the projected positive impact, low to high, right? The projected required effort, low to high. And then we take all of our solution ideas and we put it in this matrix in these different boxes, right? That tells us, okay, these are quick wins in quadrant 1, right? It's high projected positive impact, low required effort, right? We have that. That's what we want to focus on right now, all the way down to in the bottom right-hand corner, which is low projected positive impact and high projected required effort. Okay, really not something we want to spend time on. Let's get rid of those not worthy, right? So now we can prioritize not just the problems before, but we've got solution ideas we've been talking about as a team. Let's plot them all on here and get them in one place, right? Make sure we're getting everybody's voice, make sure that we're, getting it constructive, and then we can actually make some decisions and move forward. So we won't work on that one right now, just in the interest of time. The last one that I wanted to touch on today is, okay, now let's say we do have ideas. We've come up with a new idea of how to do something, right? This is a innovation adoption. This is from back in the 1960s, right? But again, for me, this was an article that I read about this, or I learned about this years ago. It's great that I learn and I can see it in an article, but how can I build something where we can all talk about it together? Okay. And so with the keys to innovation adoption, right, what we're looking at is, okay, there's a solution already out there that maybe isn't working. Why isn't it working? Or we have an idea, or we have our own solution. Is it going to work? Are people going to adopt it, right? With any solution, be it a course, be it a product, a service, you name it. It's not just to get to access, it's to get to adoption, it's to get to usage, right? So I find I come to this one all of the time, right? Extremely helpful in that for somebody to adopt something, there needs to be a relative advantage. It needs to be compatible, fit within people's lives. Big goal of trying to make these very simple is to try to make these tools compatible. It needs to be simple. People only adopt simplicity. Simplicity scales, right? iPhone, incredibly complex device. It doesn't even have instructions with it. Incredibly simple. Trialable. Can you test something out? Can you date before you get married, right? And observable. Can I see the change, right? I think ideally, as you see, I try to design these tools themselves with these 5 keys to adoption in mind. But this is a fantastic tool, right? So really just to show you, I know, if we had a little bit more time, we'd workshop it all together with the things that you had, right? Is you have these tools that can work independently, that you can work on, as you can probably see this in 15 or 20 minutes with your team. You're having a problem. It's, the pipes are broken, the water's leaking, something needs to be fixed. We got a problem. Let me pull out a wrench and fix it. That might be my problem tree or any of the other ones in the problem toolkit. Or we have a solution, we have an idea for solution. Can we vet it? Can we learn how well it might work? Can we try to improve upon it? These solution type tools might work, right? And obviously the team building tools themselves. You need it. Innovation, collaboration, is a team sport. So I'm just want to make sure we have time for questions. One thing that I didn't note within the book, and for those, if there are educators here and you want to talk, is it's a longer story of how I came to this. But one of the things when you think about, introducing new tools or new frameworks, you might not a really helpful thing to do is to scaffold it and to be able to practice it before you put it into action, right? And so what I do and what's in the book, I have 90 videos in the book, which has a QR code and a hyperlink to videos. These are short videos about change-making innovation, private sector, social sector, education, what have you, going on all around the world. Videos that I found of people doing incredible work that I love. And so what I do is oftentimes when I'm in a professional development environment or what have you, is introduce and explain a tool, just obviously in a little bit more depth than I did with you all here today. Then get into breakout rooms or teams, or if it's a smaller group, we watch a video about something really innovative that's going on in the world, and then look at that, what we saw, sort of a mini case study, and how can we apply the tool to that work, right? So, for example, if you look in, on the one in the middle, like Steve Wanta, who's actually a friend who started a microfinance organization in Texas, right? We might watch this video, and he has this new way of lending out money of microfinance to women entrepreneurs. Okay, how does that pass the 5 keys to innovation adoption? Let's talk about it through the framing of Steve's work, right? And we talk about it together. We learn from each other. Nobody has domain expertise on that particular mini case, which is great. So we all come at it at the same level, right? And then the question is, how might we apply this to our own work? So an intermediate step to be able to scaffold and be able to practice this. Okay. So benefits, I'm just go through this quickly, and I think we're doing good. As you can see, these are tools for conversation. So the idea is, let's start off, let's diverge, get as many ideas as possible, right? Explore all the possibilities, have well-constructed brainstorming conversations, or even just, one-on-one if you're mentoring or coaching, or advising, consulting, and then converge, right? If we've thrown all of our ideas out there, now we converge and we bring them all together. So it's exploring possibilities and deciding what to do. Okay, so these tools help you do that. And then, of course, another one is perspective taking. If you look below, right, you maybe seen this cartoon somewhere. It's a 6, it's a 9, right? We see things from different perspectives. We all have different work-life experiences, you name it. I don't need to get into it. So how do we learn people's perspectives? How do we get to empathy, really, which is what makes all of this tick? We need frameworks to be able to do that, to be able to have productive conversations that invite inclusivity and invite diversity of opinion in, making sure that at the end of the day, we're all seeing the same thing, or we understand why we see it differently. Attributes, hopefully, as you could see from these, are, they're proven from somewhere else, or I've designed them, I've been using them for 20-25. They're simple. Hopefully you can tell no prior knowledge required. You just picked up these 5 tools, I think, probably pretty quickly yourselves. Maybe you didn't know about them before, but you don't need anything to go into it. I design these oftentimes out of a source of frustration, and it's oftentimes frameworks for conversation or design or what have you are very, very sequential, or I've got to know a lot of things first here before I can go on to the next step. You don't need that here. You can just step in wherever you want to. Inclusive conversations, empowering. I think about it as a leader, as a boss, in the past, when people would come to me and we're going really, really fast, I wanted, you want people to be able to learn things and be empowered to make decisions on their own. But when you're going really fast, you just tell people what to do. I wish I had had something like this where I could say, hey, okay, you've got different ideas for things. Why don't you use this tool and analyze it and note down what you're thinking? Let's come back and let's use that as a framework for a conversation, right? Then that person's more empowered then in the next step. They're universally applicable, timely, I think, especially now with where we are with, hybrid and virtual and all of that. And just the need, mental health and the need for people to come together intentionally to build relationships, timeless, the keys to innovation adoption has been around forever. Snackable, I found that that's something that people really like, is you can use these quickly. Creates a common language. We talked about that, right? Working with some folks recently on the keys to innovation adoption. People had different definitions for the word simple, right? That's interesting, right? So how do we come together and agree on what the word simple means, at least within the context of our conversation? You can work on them independently or interdependently. And as I said before, they're editable. Again, these are just my best design for now. You go and change it in Google Sheets however you want to. And then the last part is what I call, what's your return on collaborative change making? This goes back to how to be able to not just survive, but thrive in VUCA. And ideally, after just looking at these and thinking about how you can work together on them, you can see some of the key takeaways. If I just look at the top, these encourage and support active listening. They support, going across the top, creativity, opportunity identification. If you look to the second one down on the right, putting empathy into action, as I said, I think this is just all about empathy. I think we all recognize that. Team building, equitable design, complex problem solving, right? So hopefully you can see how these very simple tools can just bring people together to accentuate these skills and to build these skills, which is what we all need now and moving forward. And then in addition to that, a little bit less technical, so to speak, or a little bit less here and a little bit more here, is I just found that using this, working with people together and having these kinds of conversations helps with a sense of purpose, certainly a sense of community, friendship, joy, self-confidence. Okay, I feel like I can do something now. I've got a tool in my toolkit that I can go do something with, and a sense of optimism that I know that we can work together and figure out how to solve problems, and I know that I can contribute and feel more optimistic about what I can do, more agency. Finally, some opportunities. Would love to, obviously a big point of this is to sort of create awareness and help you understand what this work is. Reach out, would love to work together. One of the things that I will be doing is working with the Alumni Association, with Molly, JJ, and Kim, is designing a series of workshops in the new year, which will be, I think, thematically around the different tools around team building and what have you. That'll all be virtual, try to get people together and to help you work on something that you care about also, but just to sort of upskill you in using all of these. So be on the lookout for that. Workshops that, I talked about the folks in Texas and the folks in Ethiopia. If you look at the top left, that was through Texas A&M. That was great. I'm doing work with, if anybody knows Kevin Cushman, an alumni as well, a dear friend. He has a startup called Electrata. I'm helping his team as they, in very snackable ways as they grow and scale, to make sure that they're sort of maintaining their collaborative culture. Half of them work virtually, right? It makes it really tough. You got to be intentional. Working with other organizations you can see here, with their leadership, with planning, with problem solving, building cultures, in a whole variety of different ways. So one of the ways that opportunities through workshops. Another is if you go to collaborativechangemaking.com, with all of these, you can dive a little bit deeper. But I designed field guides, which are curated, sort of curated tools and principles from the book. And so they're field guide for college and university students and for professional development. Again, you're already doing stuff, how to put the vitamin D. That's what the field guide is. And then you can earn a certificate that goes on LinkedIn from Ashoka U and the National Peace Corps Association. I'm in the process of designing a certificate for youth, for primarily middle school, high school students, right? Get these skills now to be able to thrive in the future. If there are any educators there who want to work together with me on that, helping me design it, that would be wonderful. So thank you for that in advance. And then the last thing I have on here is a tools letter. We'll send links to all of these out to you, hopefully, and you can see what might work for you. But with this, you get 2 tools in your inbox a week for 32 weeks, right? And so what you saw there before, you get that. I go over and I have a video explainer of it. And then ideally, a tool comes in and something you might see one day and you might ignore, that's cool. Another thing you might say, hey, that's interesting. It'll help you solve a problem today, or you put it in your labels, or you download it for later. You can now search it in your inbox. You've got a toolbox in your inbox. The sponsor part is to help sponsor others. I work with like young African leaders or folks in indigenous communities or what have you. So when you sign up, it's $5.75 a month. When you sign up for that, you can either sponsor somebody else that you want to sponsor. So it's like a buy one, give one. Or I have people waiting to be sponsored who will then get this tools letter. You can hear the sirens out there, forgive me. Get the tools letter as in their inboxes at no cost. And then as well, one of the things is doing this with organizations and sort of white labeling and everything, all of that, which I'm totally cool with. The idea is just to get stuff out there. That's why I put all this work in. So also the book, right? So please go ahead and buy the book. And if you do, reach out to me. I'd be happy to walk you through it again. It's a toolbox. So I can give some instructions on how to use it. People say, hey, Greg, I'll talk to you after I've read it. It's not a book that you read. It's just a book that you use, right? So happy to help you figure out how it might work well for you. And that's it. So you can reach out to me at gregvk@collaborativechangemaking.com for anything. Hopefully you found this helpful, and here to chat and collaborate and co-create with you. And we'll be sending out more information after this. But beyond that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and thanks so much for your time.
That was, I think, enlightening. Sometimes conversation is difficult. So I think all these tools to help facilitate are super important. We actually have your book right here. So viewers at home, looking for, I know there are some other versions. We have a couple questions from the viewing audience, if you would like to indulge us a little bit, Greg. The first one is sort of addressing change making across the generations. We're talking about boomers still being in the workforce, with millennials and Gen Z. Can you talk a little bit about change making strategies across this like sort of work life spectrum and all of these different generations and demographics?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a wonderful question, and I think that sometimes the intergenerational part of boomers versus Gen Z, or it can be it can be viewed as problematic, whereas it's reframing sort of what an asset, right? Because you have all of these different perspectives, and so the understanding that we have different perspectives, that we speak different languages, understanding the power dynamics, right? If I'm maybe a younger person and I'm working with somebody who's much older and much more senior, I might not speak up, right? Because of the power dynamics, or I might think, oh, whatever I have to say, they already know, right? Or I don't know how to contribute to the conversation. By the same token, maybe somebody who's more my age, and you've got somebody who's much younger, maybe I don't know the right language to use, right? Or maybe I'm assuming they know things or they don't, or I'm assuming they don't know things and they do. And so, part of this, all of this work was, again, to create these frameworks to be able to sit down and have a conversation, and have a conversation that's psychologically safe, where we're all sort of we're all working off the same sheet of music, so to speak. And then everybody can benefit from everybody else's different perspectives. So hopefully, these help in that regard. But we need, the more we can, again, this is positive change, innovation, problem solving, is like I said, is a team sport. And the more diversity of opinions and experiences we can have within that team, the better. And ideally, these tools help you do that.
I think what you said about all of us being on the same page of music, I think that really resonates with me. Like let's all get on the same page so we can maybe sing together a little bit more harmoniously. So that makes really good sense to me personally. Let's see, we've got a couple others. Um, can you give us maybe some like real world examples where this collaborative change making has been applied successfully, and maybe where like, you know, collaborative change making gets mucked up with everything else and it doesn't work? What are ways around that?
You froze there for a second with me, Molly. I heard give
Oh,
real world examples.
yes. So real world examples of how this collaborative change making has been applied and where it's been
Uh,
successful and maybe not so much, and ways to maybe get around that.
I'm so I'm just going to give real world examples. Like you kind of cut off there at the end. Forgive me.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. That's
Um,
perfect.
okay. Okay. Thank you. No, my apologies. I mean, these all. How much time do we have? Right, in a good way. I mean, they all come from real world examples. Like, for example, one of the tools that I didn't highlight in there today is what I call an empowerment map. Right, and so I don't know, if you may have seen, like in my career, one of the things I've worked on for many years is I lived in Guatemala and I help first time women entrepreneurs become empowered to be able to go out to last mile communities, remote villages, and sell things like water filters and eyeglasses and solar lamps and what have you. And so when I'm thinking about trying to support somebody, I know what the goal is. And if my goal is for them to become empowered, right, not for me to just tell them what to do, the question is, well, what empowerment's kind of a squishy term. How do I define empowerment? And where do I step in? And also, how do I take an asset frame? Meaning, how do I start off by looking at what their strengths are to build on those, and then figure out where I can step in where there might be a gap or a potential weakness. And so, in trying to figure out how to do that as a team, our own team in Guatemala and Nicaragua and what have you, so I had to define what is empowerment, number one, so I can help. But also, I want to be able to measure it, right? And so, the way that I define empowerment is, okay, somebody's trying to achieve a goal. In order to achieve a goal, you need to have three things: A, I, R. A, you need to have the ability to achieve it, right? And so the ability is I need to have the knowledge and the skills, right? So if I just have the knowledge, but I don't have the skills, it's not going to work, right? If I read a book about how to play soccer, but I don't actually practice soccer, I don't have the skills, I can't play soccer, right? So I need to have knowledge and skills. Next, I need to have incentives, right? To be able to achieve the goal, to work towards achieving the goal. That can mean intrinsic motivations and external incentives, right? And then R, I need the resources, right? So I need to have the stuff to do it. I need a soccer ball if I want to play soccer, right? When we make mistakes oftentimes is when we just focus on one thing. Oh, I'll just give people soccer balls and they'll go play soccer, right? But so with that tool is trying to figure, okay, so if I look at women entrepreneurs and I know that they're trying to achieve this, let me analyze where they are right now with all of this. Start with strengths, right? And then, okay, I know what I can help accentuate, I can help build on. And then where are some weaknesses, where do I step in? And then I can pick my spots of where I help somebody to become more empowered, right? So that's just one example. I use that for everything now, and like I've had guidance counselors say, oh, I'm going to use this to help analyze my students in their college prep process. How empowered are they to go through and apply for college, right? So again, universal. On another, point is, something different is consulting work for Levi Strauss Foundation and designing their worker well-being strategy with different factories all around the world for women, and very hierarchical command and control structures. So how do you help the women workers build teams and become more empowered to diagnose problems and come up with solutions and all of that? They're more empowered to solve their own problems. The factory's more resilient, right? Everybody's got better well-being. So a lot of the tools I designed trying to figure out how to do that, right? And then I guess just as certainly all of these tools I use to design courses and workshops and conferences, and it's pretty clear how those work there. And then an example just that I've been doing a lot recently is you've got a senior leadership team and they're trying to plan things and a lot of different things on their plate. So using like an Eisenhower analysis, an Eisenhower matrix, which helps you analyze what you're currently doing through the lens of importance and urgency, stakeholder engagement analysis, simple level setting, making sure they've got their RACI structure. So there's tools for all of those different things. So I guess long-winded way of saying I found applications, or I've designed this for external, for like program design, working with communities, working with people, working with clients, and also for internal teams and internal organizations. And you can use them in a variety of different ways there.
Great answer, thank you. And I think we can squeeze one more question in. So Doug asks, and he wants me to preface this, I think, with low tech is not bad. But he says
Oh,
the
Molly, I'm
tools you
losing you again. I'm sorry. Do you
oh
want to private
no.
chat me?
Yes, I will. Let's see.
You're
There
going
you go.
swimming underwater rope. Yeah.
You see it on this side. About
Okay.
low tech
Is it the low
tools
tech?
in a high tech world.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the tools you shared are relatively low tech. How do you address questions regarding high tech solutions such as AI? By the way, low tech is not bad. Thank you, Molly Young. Yeah. So one of the things I purposely, I design, as I said, I designed them in Google Sheets. They look really simple. What I'm trying to do is create like equitable access that anybody can use this. So when I was thinking about designing this, I'm thinking, can I use it? Can somebody I work with in Guatemala use it? Can can a young person who doesn't have familiarity use it? One of my big frustrations is that you have these wonderful methodologies, and sometimes, that we learn at school or what have you. And even I'm confused as heck sometimes on how to do it. Right. So if I'm confused and I do this stuff for a living, right, what about other people? So I try to break it down into these snackable things. I think in terms of AI, obviously AI is going to help with, and already is helping in so many different ways. Right. But just one simple way would be, if you're in an organization or a team, or any team, we all work in teams, right? How are we going to use AI? What are the problems that it might present? What are the opportunities that it might present? How are we going to apply it? How are we going to make it compatible? All these different things. So the AI can be the theme of your conversation for your team, and then you can use the tools to figure out how to onboard it into your organization in a way that's most effective, that gets the input of everybody involved. So hopefully that was helpful, Molly Young.
That did. I think that added a little extra dimension to it. This has been really great. Thank you so much, Greg, for being with us and for sharing.
Thank you. It was a total
Very
pleasure. I wish I could see
practical.
everybody. Yeah.
Oh, I know. That's sort
Thank
of
you.
the one downfall of this platform is that you can't actually see your viewers. But we've very much appreciated you being here today. Let's see. You can pick Greg's book up at, I'm sorry, I'm not holding it very well for the camera. You want to tell us where we can pick it up, Greg?
Oh, it's just Amazon. Yeah, you can just get it at
Amazon?
Amazon. Yeah.
All right. Excellent.
And
Well,
reach out. I'm happy to, it's collaborative change making. I'm trying to model what I'm talking about. So I'd love to collaborate if you have any other questions, or you have any ideas, or want to figure out how to get this into your work or your life.
fantastic. And your website was what again?
Collaborativechangemaking.com.
.com. All right. Well, collaborativechangemaking.com. Go visit. Thank you again for sharing with us, Greg. As a reminder to our viewers, a recording of this webinar and all of its good information will be on our website later today at alumlc.org/MiamiOH. Thank you all for joining us. Love and honor to everyone, especially you, Greg. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Take care. Bye.